Welcome, sport management students, to episode 6 of our Zoomcast series, Interviews with Professionals. And today I'm really excited to welcome our special guest with us, Lee James. Now, Lee was a silver medalist in weightlifting in the 1976 Olympics. Lee was a silver medalist in the 76 World Championships. Lee was an American record holder for the snatch from 1976 to 1992. He was a national champ in 1976 and 78. And Lee was also a gold medalist in the 1975 Pan American Games. So Lee, a tremendous amount of accolades. We are super excited to have you here and welcome you to our Zoomcast series. So welcome, Lee.
Well, thank you very much. It's very nice of you to ask me to be on.
Absolutely. And Lee, we were kind of talking beforehand. And really the purpose of these Zoomcasts are a way to hear a story about somebody that has been instrumental in the sport industry, achieved greatness in the sport industry, and really an opportunity to maybe inspire, motivate, or introduce sport management students to a different side of the sport industry that they might not have been familiar with before. So this is really a great opportunity to hear your story and your path that got you to where you were and are today. So with that being said, if you don't mind taking as long as you want, can you tell us a little bit about your story in sport?
Sure. I came from a very sports-oriented family. My father was the youngest five-letter sportsman in Mississippi, where he grew up. Back then they had boxing. He was an excellent boxer, baseball, football, basketball, and track and field and boxing. And he was an extremely good athlete. When World War II was going on, he volunteered and was a war hero with getting the Air Service Medal and several medals in combat. He was his plane. He was a B-17 pilot. Got shot down with his crew and was a POW for 9 months. And he was what you would call a man's man, but at the same time, he was a very loving man and a very supportive man. And his family came first. I'm the youngest of three. My older brother, Dennis, played professional baseball for the Dodgers. He moved up to the majors very briefly. He got moved back down. He had shoulder injury in high school that continued to plague him in his baseball career. And he kind of went through single A, double A, triple A, brief stint at the majors, back down for about 6 or 8 years, and then he left. My sister was an all-around athlete, and then there was me. I was very small for my age. In fact, when I was playing city league football, pee-wee football, they wouldn't let me play with the kids in my own age group because I was so small. So, which was embarrassing enough. And so they moved me into an even younger age group. And where I did well, but I was playing with younger kids too. This continued, my size being an issue. It wasn't necessarily an issue with me in my mind, but it was, I guess, an issue with other people because I was a pretty good athlete. And of course, being smaller, you got picked a lot of times last, even though in school I was like the third or fourth fastest person in the school. That didn't seem to make much of a difference when being chosen for teams. In the 8th grade, I'd say was the big turning point for me, in that I decided to go out for the team football. And we all met in the classroom to sign up and get our uniforms handed to us. And we all signed up. Everybody got their uniform. And then the coach says, has everybody gotten their uniform? And I raised my hand and said, Coach, I didn't get my uniform. And he looked at me and just started laughing and saying, Lee, I don't think we got a uniform to fit you. And at that, the entire room full of students started laughing at me. And I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back. I can remember vividly still riding my bike home that day, crying most of the way because I was pretty humiliated for several reasons. I remember going home and being really upset. My dad comes home and wants to know why I'm upset, and I talked to him about it. Well, that would have been in the fall, probably October, November, something like that. And that December, my dad bought me a Sears vinyl covered weight set. And I started attacking the weights viciously from there with no more knowledge than what was in the pamphlet that came with the weight set. I didn't have any weight equipment. And, but I can tell you my favorite Bible story was always Samson. And I read, I read Superman comics, too much actually. And I always would pray that I would be Superman one day. And he was like a fictional epitome to me of a modern day Hercules, for example, that he had all the power to do whatever he wanted, but he did what was right. And that kind of fell in line with the values that I had and the values that my father had taught me, the Judeo-Christian values. And I attacked the weights vividly or viciously. And then my Sunday school teacher, a Marine, was an ex-football player for Michigan State. He took me into a weight room the first time, and I could not believe that there was actually a weight room with all of those weights and machines and everything. So my parents let me join the YMCA, and I started out bodybuilding. Well, it got to where I was adding more and more muscle mass, and for some reason, some of the bigger kids quit trying to pick on me. And then the coaches were coming to me in the 10th grade, 9th and 10th grade, asking me to play football. But I really enjoyed the weightlifting, the bodybuilding, and I didn't know about Olympic lifting yet. I did go out for football in the 10th grade and made varsity, but I decided I'd rather lift weights. I didn't need football anymore to prove myself. I was already pretty much the strongest kid in the school. And I picked up a strength and health one day and saw Olympic lifting and just thought, wow, that is really the neatest thing I've ever seen. And I don't know how old you are. If you remember the old opening for Wide World of Sports on ABC, they showed a Japanese lifter doing a two-hand snatch. And I'd always thought that was amazing. And I thought the Olympic lifters were just, so super strong. And so I decided from pictures that I was going to start Olympic lifting. And I started getting a little better in that. And I started going to a couple meets, and it just kind of built from there. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I would bump into some of the coaches at the meets, and they would say, you got a lot of potential, but you're really rough in your form. And they would give me a few pointers here and there. And later on, I got married. It was after high school. And I went into the Army and started lifting again after I'd done all my training. I was in the 101st Airborne and enjoyed that. but I had always wanted to get back to the Olympic lifting. And as I was in the Army and started getting better in the Olympic lifting, my commanders started giving me a little extra time to train. And pretty soon it ended up where they moved me into the gymnasium to work full time, and I would train during that time. Several officials would write in letters to the Pentagon and to the Department of the Army. And one thing led to another. To make the story short, I got sent to York, Pennsylvania, temporary duty while I was in the Army to train for the Olympics. And this was after, of course, the 75 Pan Am Games. And the turning point, I'd say, was being able to train under the tutelage of a very famous American weightlifting coach, Richard Smitty Smith. And Smitty had an excellent eye for technique. And I just developed a deep love and respect for the man. And he really is the reason that I actually made it to the Olympics and got a silver medal at the Olympics.
That's a phenomenal story. I'm glad that you could share that with us. And it sounded like, at least from what I got from it, there was a lot of things at play that helped you get to where you were. Your family being important, your father being very special, your sibling rivalry, and then some negative things like not being able to play football at the level that you wanted to, or the level that you were supposed to based on your size. So some barriers that you, I don't want to say got over, but completely blew through those barriers and used them for your benefit. So kind of with all those themes, I want to ask two questions out of this. And you might have already alluded to them, or if you could elaborate a little bit more. The first question is, was there any one point or one milestone that you achieved that you kind of knew after that, I've made it to where I wanted to go with this, or I'm happy and I'm successful with this? And then on the second side of that, and you mentioned Richard Smitty Smith, we always talk about the importance of finding mentors or finding people that can help you along the way, because there's very few people that have experienced success at a high level that have done it alone. So those two questions, I'm sorry I threw two of them at you, but any milestone where you just knew that you've achieved what you've wanted to achieve, and then any role models or mentors that have helped you get to where you wanted to go? You on that? I'm sorry.
You kind of froze up on me a little bit, but I get the gist of it. I don't think I ever reached that level where I was satisfied. I thought I had a whole lot more in me. In fact, I wanted to be the first middleweight to do a 400 two-hand snatch and a 500 clean and jerk. But the way it goes, you sometimes you can't choose your circumstances. I had some knee problems right after the Olympics. They did one surgery. The doctor didn't exactly do that surgery correctly. My knee messed up again while I was trying to get back in shape, so they had to go in again. And they had to. What I had was a patella tendon that my kneecap was cutting through it. I had what they called a jumper's knee, or a teardrop kneecap, I believe he called it. And so it cut through the patella tendon where it attaches to the kneecap, and caused a great deal of pain, and it started shredding off of the kneecap. The second operation, so much of it was damaged and dead, they had to cut a lot away and hyper stretch that patella tendon to reattach it, which limited the depth I could squat down. And it started actually pulling off my shin at that point, once I made a comeback and set some more records after the 78 senior nationals. it really got bad again, and I was not able to compete in the Worlds that year. And what it was the tendon was pulling off of the shin. And at that point, I went to several doctors, and apparently it's not just as easy as taking it off and sticking it back on, especially not back then. And I thought it just best that I retire rather than make myself an invalid or whatever. So I felt like I never reached my true potential. But what it did show me was that if I persevere through the hardships, because it's not always a straight line up. A lot of times it's more of a kind of like the stock market. It goes up and down, and the downs can be very down. I can remember after I had set my first American record that week, after that, I came back into the gym to work out, and the American record I set was a 347 snatch, 347 pounds. I couldn't snatch 290 after that for a couple workouts, and I was really frustrated. And Smitty said, Lee, I think maybe you're a little overtrained. And I screamed and I said, blankety, blankety, blank, Smitty, I am not overtrained. And I grabbed a chair and threw it across the gym. Well, Smitty just walked out. And I thought about it and I thought about it. And I said, boy, I really made a stupid fool of myself. I went back to Smitty. I said, Smitty, I apologize. I'm really sorry. I was out of line. And you're right. I'm overtrained. And I'm not going to come into the gym for a week. Sure enough, I didn't come into the gym for a week. I came back after that week cold and snatched a lot more weight than I was missing with. So I had in Smitty someone I could really trust. But when you ask, did I ever achieve what I thought I could, or was I ever happy with what I achieved? No. The other question about a mentor, I was very blessed to have the father I have. And he was always bigger than life to me. In fact, I used to tell him that he was the only man that I knew that could take the mask off the old Lone Ranger, could whip Superman and Batman and take on Captain Kirk and the entire Starship Enterprise with one hand tied behind his back. He was just such a remarkable man to me, and it still chokes me up a little bit to think about him. He died in 2016 at 92, but I was very blessed to have him for a father, because he was a great example of what a strong man should be. A strong man doesn't mean you can't be loving man. And I was very blessed to have Smitty, who was like a second father to me. In fact, even after my lifting was over, Smitty and I remained close until he had passed away.
I really appreciate that story, and apologize if there's any technical difficulties going on. I keep seeing the dreaded unstable connection terms, but
yeah, I'm seeing that over here. Yeah. A couple of times you've frozen up.
All right. Well, we'll just keep going with it, though. I really appreciate the story about your father and Smitty, and I think that so many athletes today really rely on family and coaches, and those are their important mentors in life. And so with that kind of question, I want to segue into for current athletes, and I have a lot of athletes in my sport management classes. Is there any advice that you could give them to, help them maybe, or give them input on how to be as great as they can be, or any advice on how to achieve whatever they think they're capable of and whatever they feel they're capable of?
Well, it's kind of the old adage that you can't always choose your circumstances, but you choose how to handle the circumstances. I could have, when the coach laughed at me and all the kids laughed at me, I could have done what a lot of people would do and just break down and go hide in a corner. But I thought what I need to do is I need to do something about the situation. And the only thing I knew is I figured strength was the great equalizer. I couldn't do any more growing. That was out of my control. But my strength was within my control. So I would say that take control of the circumstances, or think about how you handle the circumstances. And also, not all negatives, not all bad things that happen to you are a negative. Sometimes, like the old saying, Nietzsche, is it's credited to it, whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And in this case, it was what I needed to spur me on to do something about it and to change my circumstances. I couldn't get, I obviously I grew more, but I've never been a tall person. And so the strength was the great equalizer there for me. And I found something that I could excel in. And even though when I got to York, Pennsylvania, I thought that that was muscle mecca for Olympic lifting. There was even rivalries there that were not real pleasant. But what it did was it disciplined me. If somebody was rattling the weight sets or something to try to distract me, it taught me concentration. And so you take the things that are happening to you, and they're going to be negative, and you try to make something positive out of them. So let those things strengthen you, strengthen your character, strengthen your will, and it will make a difference. It's all how you're going to approach those bad things.
Yeah, that's phenomenal advice, and we talk about that a little bit in some of my coaching courses. Is really one of the best skills of athletes that they can possess is the ability to control the controllables. Like you mentioned, you can't control your size or your height, things like that. We can't control it, but we can control hard work, perseverance, concentration, dedication, and how we deal with negatives. So I'm glad you touched on that and kind of reinforced at least some of the things that I've been teaching my students. So I appreciate that. The next question I want to get into, and this is kind of, I know my students will love hearing about this, is you're an Olympian, and such a small population gets to ever experience that. I mean, I'm sure it's 0.0001% of the population gets to be an Olympian. What was that like for you?
Well, it was an exciting experience. I can't quite describe, but it's a lot of elation. It's a lot of stress because now I've made it to the Olympics. Now what? Now you've got to perform. And I don't think I was really considered, other than by my coach, a medal winner. I think they were focused on other people that might have a chance to get a medal. And Smitty and I had talked a lot about poundages and things and what I would need. And it kind of just worked out. If Smitty had not have been there, I would not have gotten the silver medal. That's another story. But at the time, you're really focused. I was focused on, okay, I've made it this far. Now I got to make sure I don't look like a fool when I'm competing. So I've got to perform. I can't go there and bomb out. I can't go there and just perform mediocre. I have got to perform. I've got to hit the right poundages, and I'm representing my country, my family, and I don't want to let any of them down. So to me anyway, it was kind of a elation, but kind of a stressful time because I felt like I had to show the world.
I can definitely, and we talk about that a little bit in my sport and society course about the pressure and stress we put on athletes and the pressure and stress that there is in athletics, especially at the young age. When we look at Olympic gymnasts, I mean, some of them are 12, 13 years old, and for them to experience this high level stress, is that in their best interest? But that's an excellent story to hear about your experience with the Olympics. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit more towards the health and fitness industry. And this is something that, again, you have a unique story where you got a pack of weights from your dad, and that's what spurred your interest into this. But since that time, the health and wellness industry, there's all these products, there's all these exercises, there's all these programs, there's all these different fads and nutrition and diet and equipment and things going on that were really hitting the consumer from all ends. And a lot of them don't work, I guess is the main thing. But was there anything that you did during your training that you still see as an important training method today, or something that you saw or worked for you that is still relevant today that has withstanded the test of time?
Well, I stuck to the basics, and everything I did had to coordinate with the actual movement of either the snatch or the clean or the jerk. And we didn't try to get too fancy. We realized the muscles we had to work, and we wanted to work those muscles in the identical movement that you did in a pull off the floor for the snatch and the clean and jerk. In fact, in speaking with the Soviets, now the Russians, but the Soviets in the 70s, they related a snatch and a clean and jerk to how much you could rear squat. And I don't remember the exact percentages now, and how much you could front squat and things of that nature. So Smitty and I worked on a routine that varied our percentages that we lifted every week and tried to encompass the fast twitch fibers, the slow twitch fibers. In Olympic lifting, you didn't need a lot of endurance. So we concentrated more on fast twitch fibers. We focused on those muscle groups that were the most important to Olympic lifting. And we didn't stray into the other areas that some people might have with extraneous movements here or there. We did a lot of pulls, we even did isometrics. We did some assistant work that would isolate muscle groups like the lower back. But overall, we stuck with more complete movements. As far as nutrition, they talk about a carbohydrate diet and the keto diet, high protein, low carbs. And I was doing high protein, low carbs back in the 70s. That's what Smitty had recommended. And I was running at a body weight of about 200. I had about an 8% body fat. When they did the water weight buoyancy test. And so we were eating, I was eating pretty good, but not a lot of carbs. Now, I do have a sweet tooth. I do have a weakness there for chocolate chip ice cream and things like that. But, I tried to keep that to a minimum.
For sure, for sure. Well, I'm glad you mentioned.
And we took protein supplements and vitamins, but I didn't get into these fancy type of proteins and stuff. We just basically took a whey protein that Hoffman supplements, Bob Hoffman produced. And I took multivitamins and B12 and some other vitamins that were supposed to be specialized, but we didn't get into a lot of the to the sidebar on some of these other supplements that people were taking.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, especially again, we have some phys ed students that take courses like Principles of Fitness and Wellness and Fitness Concepts and Applications. And we do talk a lot about isometric training and fast twitch and slow twitch fibers, muscle fibers. And in our sport nutrition class, we do talk about the importance of protein and carbohydrates. And, you know, with all the different vitamins and vitamin deficiencies out there, one of the best things is just to get to your vitamins through a multivitamin or through your food. So I'm glad you reinforced some of those ideas. And again, there's so many fad things out there that it just confuses consumers, but I'm happy to know that things that work for you are still things that are prevalent today. So that's good to hear.
Basic, the proven. The
What's that?
basic and the proven.
Yeah, absolutely. The things that have been, again, around for a while and have been studied, proven, and they show the benefits behind it. So I'm glad to hear that, at least that things that we're teaching, you're reinforcing. So thank you for that. I know I don't want to keep you for a very, very long time on this because I do appreciate your time and taking your time out of your day to do this for my students. But I always like to wrap up these Zoomcast episodes with a final thought or a final story or just something that you want to convey to the students that are going to be the next generation in sport and the sport industry, whether it be on the business side or whether it be on the coaching side or whether it be on the athletics side. Is there anything left that you want to share or any words of information or inspiration or advice or anything left that you think would be of value to the next generation?
Well, everything is of value. Don't get discouraged. And everybody will to get discouraged, but I was very blessed to have Smitty, who even at times when I didn't believe in myself, Smitty believed in me. My dad believed in me. And it's always important when you're on the lifting platform, you're all by yourself, you're alone, it's all you at that point. But weightlifting was not an alone sport. Nothing is an alone sport in reality, because you've got the people that coach you, mentor you, encourage you. Smitty used to joke around that I should have lifted it because he was lifting also. So it's always try to keep positive people, not people that are going to lie to you and say, "Oh, that looked great, man. You did a great pull," when it was really a terrible pull, because they're not helping you. But you want to keep people around that are positive for you, yet honest with you. And don't always look at everything bad that happens as a negative thing. Um, Even in the business world, I had some bosses who were good examples of what a boss should be. And I had some bosses that were terrible examples of what a boss should be. They're horrible. But I learned from them, and I learned I learned what not to do and how I felt if a certain action was taken that was unjust. So when I became a manager, I tried to apply the traits that I had learned from the good ones and tried to learn from the bad bosses what not to do. So everything, you should try to take in everything, analyze everything, and use everything to make a better you.
That's excellent. And I kind of want to just recap and reiterate two of the things at least I took away from that I think will be of a lot of value to my students. First one, really surround yourself with good people that are going to be honest with you, and good coaches that are going to be honest with you. And even if it's something you don't want to hear, they're going to give it to you honestly, and it's going to improve you. And the second takeaway that I got from that was learn from failure and learn from your mistakes and learn from any negative thing that comes to you. Don't dwell on it, but learn from it. So I think those are two really, really great takeaways and pieces of advice. So I appreciate that from you. So with that said, I kind of want to wrap this up. Lee, I really, truly appreciate the time that you've taken out of your Friday evening to meet with myself and in return meet with some students at Jamestown Community College in Western New York. So I really do appreciate this, and we wish you the best in everything that you do moving forward. But thank you for taking your time out of your day to meet with us.
Well, thank you very much. I'm flattered, and good luck to everybody and whatever they endeavor to do.
Yeah, that's perfect. And we have, I think they'll appreciate that good luck because we have finals week coming up here in a week or so. They'll be, yeah, they'll be looking for all that. But again, this.
Well, don't tell them not to be sitting there reading Superman comic books.
That's great. That's great. So Lee, thank you very much. Students in Sport Management Program. Our next episode will be coming out in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, this is a great episode to sit back, watch, and take in everything that Lee has given us today. So thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you.